Before we get started on today's video, I'd like for you to give this video a thumbs up. Also, consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. And feel free to leave a comment on any future videos you'd like to see from me.
Hi! So today I'm going to be talking about humility with art and how to practice it. In the background, I am just sketching out my character Lula, kind of in a different way. I actually did this one in Photoshop, and yeah, it was kind of I was trying something different. I was trying something new. Definitely not really the style that I draw in, but I guess at this time, this was a couple of weeks ago, and at this time I was just kind of messing around with a bunch of different brushes and a bunch of different techniques. So yeah, I was actually inspired by another YouTuber, Chris Mason, and I was studying the way he sketches his work and kind of like how he does his line work. And yeah, so I took a little bit of inspiration from that and was kind of trying out something new. So yeah, and you know, still kind of putting my little style to it, and also taking inspiration from other things. So yeah, hopefully yeah, you enjoy this time lapse. Again, this is kind of an old illustration, not that old, but it's a couple weeks old. I'm also kind of getting sick again. So my throat hurts right now, but I wanted to stay true to the Tuesday upload schedule, so here I am. All right, let's get into it. So humility with art and how to practice it. Well, I mean, what can I say? I don't know if a lot of us agree with being humble, or if we all really are on the same page as to what humility really means. And you know what? I didn't even look up the I didn't even look up the definition for it. But I'm just going to kind of give you what I think humility is, or what being humble is. And okay, yeah. So for me, this is something that I struggled with when I was a teenager, and it wasn't until I moved out and went to college that yeah, I learned a lot of life lessons. And I guess you could say life humbled me. I know a lot of people say, oh, I always hear that life humbles you, life humbles you. Yeah, in my case it did. And it doesn't always though. So this is why I'm making this video. For all you artists out there, I think that this is a really good skill to have. It's something I'm still working on. I know sometimes it feels like salt in the wound when, you know, you get critiques on your work. But especially when it's, I guess, what is the word now? Unsolicited advice. Yeah. You know, it's hard. Like that's for me, that whole unsolicited advice is a really big gray area. I think sometimes people really do have the best intentions when they're giving advice. And anyways, whatever. That's a video for another time. So let's talk about humility with art. So I think people sometimes misunderstand humility or being humble with weakness or low self-esteem. And that is just not true. Being humble is not you having low, it has nothing to do with your self-esteem, and it has nothing to do with you being weak or strong or powerful or whatever. It really doesn't. For me, it's a skill. It's something you can practice on a daily basis, and that's with everything that you do. In this case, I'm gearing it more towards art because I'm an art channel, and I think, you know, this may reach other artists, and I think practicing humility with art is really important, but not just with art, with everything you do in life. I promise you will be a lot happier and people will like you a lot more. And I know you're probably, well, I don't want to be liked. Okay, well, I mean, that's your prerogative. I can't make you, do things. This is just some friendly advice. I guess some unsolicited advice. If you came across this video and you don't really want to listen to it, but yeah, it's definitely something you practice every day. And again, it's a really good skill to have. I didn't come to appreciate this until I was much older. But for those of you who are younger, like especially teenagers, I was not humbled at all. I was a spoiled, entitled brat when I was a teenager, and I will openly say that. I was a horrible person. And it wasn't until I became an adult and life humbled me and slapped me in the face and was like, no, Biz, you are not all that. And here are some hurdles I need you to get past. And that really humbled me. So that's how I learned. I kind of learned the hard way. But again, this is something you can practice. You don't have to learn the hard way. Life doesn't have to humble you. You could start being humble since you're a kid. Like even your parents might also teach you this. Again, it's a great skill to have. So humility is not putting yourself down. It is allowing yourself to hear another's perspective and finding something you can take away from it. Allowing someone else to have the spotlight and respecting their moment to shine. And this is something, I know it's hard because we all love, well, okay, some of us like the attention, some of us don't. But for those of us who do like the attention, it's hard, when someone else is getting their little spotlight moment, you want a little bit of that, right? I think it's human nature for us to want a little bit of that. But it's good to, respect someone else's moment and let them have it. And this also goes for, and hear me out, even those you may think, or what am I trying to say? Those that you may think, oh, they don't deserve it. Hear me out. You can play by ear and by situation or scenario. And I'll put an example. You're in high school and you create this wonderful art piece, and Joe Schmo next to you creates we'll say a mediocre art piece, right? And the teacher, for whatever reason, maybe it's story, maybe it's something else, gives Joe Schmo a lot of spotlight. Like, oh, Joe Schmo did this. This is what I really like to see. It's not always about the anatomy or the angle or whatever, because he told a beautiful story through his art piece or whatever. And let's say Joe Schmo really has it's like the idea was there, they didn't execute it quite, maybe at 100%, like maybe you executed yours because your lighting was on par, your anatomy was on par, your perspective was on par, everything was good. And you think to yourself, I should have gotten all the attention, not Joe Schmo. But maybe Joe Schmo did something different that you didn't. Maybe that you overlooked because you were so focused on all of the technicalities. And Joe Schmo was feeling, and it was emotional, and his piece was just spoke to people, or it spoke to the teacher. And you're here sitting here, well, why isn't mine getting all the attention? I mean, you still got a good score, right? Maybe you got an A+ or whatever, but the teacher didn't. And maybe Joe Schmo got a lower score than you, but he got the attention and you didn't. And you're sitting there like, oh, what the heck? Joe Schmo has trash art. And then you go, I mean, come on. I think we've all done it, right? Come on. I think for the most part, a lot of us have felt a little, and even if you don't say anything out loud, maybe internally you're a little bit jealous. You're like, what gives? Like, I spent so much time on my art piece and I did everything right, and Joe Schmo did something mediocre and he gets more attention. That is where you practice being humble and humility. That's where it comes into play. This is where you ground yourself and you say, you know what? I did have a good art piece, and nobody trashed it. Nobody said anything. I got a good mark. The teacher just, maybe that artwork from 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐢 really spoke to her. Maybe instead of being like so bitter about it, go up to the teacher and be like, hey, so you talked about all these things with 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐢's art. I really want to know, what do you think about it? Or what is it that you really like? And maybe get into some conversation and learn, maybe the teacher says, I just really love the way that they, did their colors or whatever. Their combination of colors was amazing. And the way the lighting, whatever. And it really told a story about this really sad old man. And it was just very, very appealing to me. Okay, like that's really cool. Maybe go to 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐢 and be like, hey, like, how did you create this artwork? And get into conversation and really learn. Don't just be like, oh, I'm better than you because I have perspective down, I have anatomy down, I have all this down, and you're scum. It's easy to be bitter about something, especially when you feel you've done something better. And although, yes, technically, if all the technicalities are there, and yes, technically you have done the better job, and again, you got the better score, and this is all just like hypothetically speaking, right? This actually did not happen. I don't know if it's happened to anybody, but it definitely did not happen to me. So just y'all know, I'm not pulling this as a true story. This is just me pulling it out of my ass. But humility is learning from those who are either more experienced from you, and in some cases, sometimes less experienced than you. It's okay to ground yourself and bring yourself, to other people's levels. And I think that's where your biggest learning curve is going to come, is by listening to other people and taking in, oh gosh, my dog's going to start barking. We're not barking, sir. Okay. I might cut this out. Where was I? Oh, sometimes it's taking other people's experiences and asking them about it, not just writing them off because they're too good or they're not good enough or whatever, or they don't have enough experience because they're young or they're too old. What do they know? They're crotchety old farts. And we all get stuck in this, right? We all get stuck in this mentality of, I'm better than you because I'm 80 years old and I've lived through life and I'm seasoned. And then you get the 20 somethings like, oh, crotchety old fart doesn't know shit. Like that their time was different from my time. And yes, it's true. But this is where both parties can come together and talk about things, because imagine if we could all just like talk about our experiences, and actually we'd probably come to realize that we're a lot more alike than we think. And that our experiences are really not that different. Yes, times are different. Yes, back then things were very different for my grandparents. My grandparents were married, in the 1930s? So yes, the 1930s were a completely different time than the 2014s. But I think that we can still meet somewhere in the middle, and there could still be experiences that we can share, and that we can agree on. And I think that's where humility plays a big, big role in just being a better version of yourself tomorrow than you are today. And, it's one of those things. Humbling yourself is learning from others with more experience, and sometimes others with less experience than you, not shutting someone down because you think you're better or think you know it already. So that's just kind of my 2 cents. However, I will say, that humility is not allowing someone to disrespect you or shame you. So don't twist it. Some people think, oh, well, if you're being humble, you can't stand up for yourself. No. If someone is out of line and they are disrespecting you or shaming you for whatever reason, and they're completely out of line, you correct them. You take that moment to correct them respectfully. And if you need to walk away from the situation, you will. And you know what? You may come to find out that correcting the person in the moment may actually, you may actually change them, because they may be like, oh, they may never get that pushback. And then you give them that pushback, and then they're like, oh shit, dude, I'm so sorry. I didn't even realize I said that, or it's not okay or whatever. And you may actually change them. So, but you have to do it respectfully. And I know that we all get heated in moments and, you this, F you, F this. And I know it's easy, again, I am a very emotionally explosive person. I'm also a very passionate person. And if someone says something disrespectful, yeah, it can be very triggering for me. But also I have unresolved trauma that I have not worked through. So in this case, obviously, you would have to take care of your mental health and make sure you're grounding yourself, or you're practicing, I guess, like practicing, you know, how to ground yourself, or, you know, how not to, you know, have your emotions come exploding, come out, you know, when you're in a moment of high stress, or in a moment where like someone's being completely out of line and you just want to punch them in the face, but you know you can't do that. Don't get that twisted. If someone is being complete, and you'll know it. I mean, I feel like that's for the most part common sense. Like if someone is being, you know, the R-ism word, or, and I really hate the phobic word, you know, against the LGBTQ, because I'm like, it's not a phobia, you're just being an asshole, right? Isn't that what Morgan Freeman said? So yeah, if someone's just being completely out of line, you correct them. And if it's getting too intense or whatever, you just walk away, because it's just not worth it. It's not worth it for your mental health. It's just, you're probably not going to change them. And it's just one of those things that's just going to have, like, just walk away. It's okay. But yeah, I mean, gosh, I feel like this was kind of like a jumbled mess of a video, but humility, practice it. Again, it's definitely a skill. We don't all come out of the womb being humble. Absolutely not. Especially if we're raised like spoiled little brats like me. Oh, my Lanta. Oh, my Lanta. He's just so upset. So sorry, my dog. He's really upset. So I think my puppy is dreaming, and he had a little nightmare. And so the big one is like, I don't know if he thinks that someone's near, or no, sir. No, sir. Go lay down, sir. It's still early. Oh, my Lanta, he's so upset. Okay. But yeah, anyways, humility. Definitely a skill. Practice it. And you know, just take one day at a time, and yeah, if you'd like, I would love to hear about any experiences that you've had, either practicing humility, or maybe a moment where you were kind of maybe a snob like yours truly. I have a lot of snobby stories. I was a horrible teenager. I say that, and maybe I wasn't that bad, but I was definitely eek. Yeah, I felt so entitled back then. I mean, I think about it now, I'm like, wow, I was just a little jerk, you know. And I'm not saying all teenagers are like this, because they're not. It was just me. It's just maybe the way I was raised. I was a spoiled kid growing up. So yeah, I don't know. Anyways, leave me a comment on any experiences with humility, whether you had noticed a moment of humility in your life that you practiced, or maybe a moment where somebody else was practicing humility with you because you were being, I don't know, unreasonable, which I have a lot of stories about myself like that. So yeah, anyways, this is a no shame zone. I think I would like to really create a space where we can all accept our flaws. It's okay. We're not the people we were back then, and we're moving on to greener pastures, right? I really want to believe that people can change, and you know, who you were as a teenager, no matter how snobby and Regina Georgie you were, you may not be that person anymore, and that's okay. And I'm not saying I was a Regina George. I was kind of like a loser Regina George, if you could think about, if you could actually put that in your mind like that, if that actually makes sense. But anyways, okay, I've talked long enough. This video is long enough. Leave your comments down below if you like this kind of video, if you enjoyed the time lapse, and this is kind of like a more random video. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with my channel. So yeah, subscribe if you'd like. Please hit that thumbs up on this video. It would mean a lot to me, and I will catch you in the next video.